Hello and welcome to the Scotland Rugby News podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg-Shaped, and him, the editor, the man with the words, the one and the only Gav Harper. How are you, pal?
Yeah, very well, Bruce. How are you?
Yeah, good, very good. Doddy dinner last night, lots of money raised to try and get us a bit closer to that cure that everybody is desperate for. Some pretty inspirational people, Gabby Logan hosting, Martin Bayfield doing the auction, and then just a room full of good folk, including Kenny Logan. But no, it was good. It was a very cool thing. Lots of good folk there for the right reasons. So all guns blazing for Doddy now and stuff at 1872 and building towards Six Nations and all that. So exciting, really exciting. And now we're finished with the autumns and back into URC. Excited for it.
Yeah, it's been an interesting month with Scotland. I think probably 3 wins out of 4 was what we expected. So a big month now for Edinburgh and Glasgow, really, before the 1872 Cup games.
The coming out of Scotland when we finished on a high, obviously the Australia game was the massive high because of the performance and because of what Australia had done previously. I'm not sure they've got enough to beat Ireland, but we can only play what's in front. It'll be interesting to see if probably more of the Edinburgh players come back into Edinburgh camp having been, a nice change back in, revitalised, ready to go, team strong for the game against Benetton tomorrow. They really need to kick on, don't they?
Totally. Like, we spoke to Sean Everett earlier this morning after he announced the team, and he kind of said that Darcy, when we spoke to Darcy after the Australia game, he said playing Benetton this week's must win. And I think that's probably fair given Edinburgh have only got 2 wins and they both came at home. They need to pick up every point they can at home. And then I think Sean had acknowledged they need to pick up points away from home as well and kind of learn where they've gone wrong there at the start of the season. So yeah, it is a massive game for them. I think the players will take a lot of confidence from their individual performances. I think a lot of them were up there with some of Scotland's better players, especially the Australia game. You look at Jamie Ritchie, Pierre Schumann were probably the 2 outstanding forwards. Darcy seems to have found his form again. Duhan scoring a lot of tries. So like it bodes well, but they've now got to put that together with at club level.
Darcy and Duhan have both played well for Scotland, and we spoke before the selection Australia game. What do you do? How do you fit Tom Jordan, Blair Kinghorn, Darcy Graham, Duhan van der Merwe into 3 places? And I think Gregor nailed his colours to the mast. Tom Jordan on the bench, Blair's my first choice 15, Darcy and Duhan are the wingers. But Edinburgh have got to get them the ball. Like they can, Darcy can be on form, he can be excited, he looks happy again, which he didn't a lot of the time last year, because I don't think he was close to 90% fit, never mind 100. But they've got to get the ball, otherwise it doesn't matter who's on good form if they can't get ball.
Yeah, that's it. That's the bit they've got to solve. Musese and Matt Curry played reasonably well for the A team, but Matt Curry was stuck out on the wing, so they've got to find. I think Sean Everett's got to find that midfield partnership and just stick with it. I know there's loads of games and players will have to come in and out a wee bit, but that feels like an area where they really need to find. He seems to have stuck with Ross Thompson as his 10. So he's now got to find that midfield and make sure that they've got that balance of, they talked about developing the attack this season. Well, if they're going to do that, they need to get, as you mentioned, they need to get that back 3 the ball. Wes Houston was their player of the year last year. So, he's now doing a job for them at 15 because Buffelli's injured and doesn't look like he'll be back anytime soon. Darcy and Duhan, as you say, are in form, but that finding the way to get them involved and get them in the game as much as Scotland do is the absolute key. And I'm sure that's been right at the front of Sean's mind this week.
I'm delighted Curry's at 13. Talking about settling on something, wing 12, bench 13. He's had it all to deal with, and he deals with it very well. I'm hoping he can have a real crack at 13 and see how it goes. I'm interested again with the selection at 9 that Ali Price starts with Ellicott on the bench. Ali obviously got to play for Scotland ahead of Ben, so maybe that makes sense. But the forward pack, Sam Skinner back, which is good for a bit of depth and experience, probably come off the bench and get some. But that forward pack's probably not far away from a first choice. Hamish, where does Hamish fit? Marshall Sykes, Jamie Hodgson, Sam Skinner. I was really chuffed for Gilco through the Autumn Nations. I think he probably needed it and delivered. He's the consistent performance he's got. Paul Hill's probably had a rest and able to go again and probably put in a sizable shift. So that forward pack, I'm sick of talking about on paper, but that forward pack, there can't really be any complaints for Edinburgh come Benetton game.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think, you talk about Edinburgh, and over 5-10 years, we've talked about, even from the days of, Dickinson, Ford, Nell, and you get fed up with saying, well, on paper, they should be better than they are. And I feel like for a while, there's been potential with Scotland that's the way it was going. I think this autumn, so a lot of the noise coming out of the Scotland camp is that this has to be the sort of base level of performance, and that now they do go on in the Six Nations. And I feel like, I know it's only been 4 weeks, and there were some, that Lions game, I'm sure, still hurts the Edinburgh players. But they've got to start delivering on the potential, because, we're going to turn around in 2 or 3 years and some of these players will be finished, and that potential that was always there throughout somebody like Hamish Watson's career or Grant Gilchrist's career will be gone. So they really do need to step up, but that pack's as strong as they could possibly have hoped for, maybe barring the exception of Hamish and Sam Skinner coming back. But good to see him back as well.
Yeah, class. Ewan Ashman has to be as confident as he's ever been, because he appears to be Gregor's first choice. So to come back to Edinburgh, so if you look at that Edinburgh starting team, you're probably looking at Pierre, Ashman, Gilchrist, Van der Merwe, Darcy as the stick-ons to start for Scotland. So that's a third of your team. You're then looking at probably another third of your team being there or thereabouts, having been capped very recently. But then you've got, Wes Houston, who can't be capped but was Player of the Year last year. So the quality is there, but it has to deliver. Paddy's on the bench again. Darcy Ray's, going pretty well and seems happy with life. Freddie Douglas might get his first game for Edinburgh, even though he beat Edinburgh at the tape for Scotland. Ellicott, Healy, McCann. So Ben Healy back on the bench. I don't know. How much game time does he get? Where's his confidence at? So there's so many question marks that are only going to be delivered after the game. What are they going to do against Benetton?
Totally. And I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago about, results and performances and how do you weigh them up? What's more important? Ultimately, if Edinburgh win this 3-0, it's another win. They've got to win all their, they've got to win as many home games as they can, particularly with Glasgow coming up, which is one that you would, from an Edinburgh perspective, be worried about. So you've got to bank as many points as you can, and I think that's probably part of the reason that Sean has gone as strong with his team. I think he alluded to this morning that he'll rest guys over the next coming weeks. So what that looks like for Europe, who knows? But it is must win. It's a huge game for Edinburgh, even though we're in November.
It is. I think we're getting to a point where every game's must win for Edinburgh, because as soon as there's a negative, folk are jumping on it.
I also think, especially at home, like I've just said, especially at home, but I also feel like for Sean and his own position and the confidence of the supporters, it feels like they need to turn a corner and start winning and start scoring some tries and really put a team away. And I think that would give supporters maybe a bit of a change of heart and the confidence that they maybe don't have at the minute.
I love the management of squads because he's gone pretty full on, but knowing that not many other teams in URC are probably managing the load the way Scotland control players for Edinburgh and Glasgow and what that means for rotation. Europe probably gives you a little bit of breathing space where you can have your 1 week off in 5 in a European game. But by fielding a team so strong off the back of the autumns, it potentially looks like everybody would have to be rested at the same time rather than having just a few less big names in your team at a time. So how you manage that. But then you have Glasgow who, all respect to that front pack, the front 8, there's probably only Johnny Matthews as a front liner. So 1 out of 8. But then you've got a back line that is pretty close to a first choice. So Glasgow are managing it very differently from Edinburgh.
Yeah, and I think some of that will be necessity. Glasgow have picked up injuries throughout the course of the autumn. So, like, Jack Dempsey's not available, Kyle Staines still not available, Max Williamson's injured, Gregor Brown. So, you take one position, take the second row, Richie Gray's left, Max Williamson and Gregor Brown, who would have filled in there, are now both injured, and that has presented opportunities for, thankfully, Alex Samuel, who was also injured for a spell during the autumn. Thankfully, he's now back fit. Jarry gets his opportunity, having played well off the bench for Scotland Day last week. But, it's a reasonable step up to play against Chile and then play against a Scarlets team who Alex Craig's on the bench. But, they've got somebody like Vaya Fifita, who's an All Black. I mean, it's a great challenge, and certainly Franco will learn a lot about his squad. But I am surprised that there aren't more of the Scotland guys. You look at the front row, Patrick Schickerling, normally a tight head playing on the loose. Finn Richardson on the tight head making his debut. Well, Jamie Batty, Rory Sutherland didn't have that much game time for Scotland. I'm surprised one of them's not in there. As you say, Johnny Matthews is first choice, but I think he's probably playing this week because all the other hookers seem to be on the bench.
Well, you got a British Lion Loosehead on the bench.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. But I suppose that shows the depth that Glasgow have now got, that they've got essentially 4 internationals. One's a British Lion. The last game I saw Alan Dell play was for Glasgow A against Edinburgh. And he started at prop, and because of the injuries they had picked up, after about 15 minutes, he was playing in the back row. So how much game times he actually had at prop, and that's another a totally different subject, but it's a problem, They obviously feel Schickerling's slightly ahead, even out of position, which is.
I think if you're Jarry or Alex or some of those, Finn got a bit of Scotland Day. If you're those guys, you're buzzing for this week. Like, you want to keep going. You don't want 1 in, 2 out, 4 out, never play. You want to keep playing. So you've built up performance 1 week, right? Let's go again. And they, the boys that were in the A they've got longer to rest. So I think it's going to be interesting. I saw Big Al Kellick last night, and I said to him, it's like a bunch of young boys up front, and then you've got your back line at the back. It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. But the way Glasgow and Franco's Glasgow have gone, there's nothing would surprise. If they turn around and get a bonus point win, you're not really that surprised. You're delighted, but I don't think you're that surprised anymore.
No, I totally agree. And I think the way that you talk about managing squads, I think the way that he's balanced the team, it would be really easy to say, okay, we'll throw Ben Afshar in, we'll throw a couple of young guys in the back line, and we'll almost not write this one off, but that kind of idea. Where actually he's gone, I know there's no Sione, there's no Hugh Jones, but that back line's pretty strong Horn, Hastings, Road, Jordan, McDowell, Cancellieri, and Mackay. You know, you wouldn't sniff at that if it was playing in a playoff game.
And the ridiculous bit is with the depth that Glasgow have got, there's no Sione and no Shuggy, but you've got Tom Jordan, who arguably is the talk of the town, you know, north of the border and now in Bristol. And you've got Stafford McDowell, who's Scotland captain now. Like, that's on the CV.
Yep.
In bold, right at the very top. And player of the year, and, you know, Mr. Consistency just signed a new contract. He's worth millions now. So you're not missing Sione and Hugh Jones. Like, that's the bonkers depth, and not even necessarily depth, just level of performance that has been established there. Like, if Edinburgh could get a hold of those players to 7 out of 10 every week, and then knowing that they'll give you an 8, 9 or 10 every however often, you'd be happy. That's where they're not at the moment. Whereas if that Glasgow team, you look at 2 or 3 of those young pups up front who want to stake a claim. I mean, Ali Miller, talking a consistent level of performance, he'll give everything Ali Miller can give. And then you look at Venter might be the standout, or Johnny Matthews scores 10 tries and nobody really notices, because that's just what Johnny Matthews did. He told me the other day he's played Zebre 5 times and scored 13 tries against them.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, his strike rate's ridiculous, but largely built off. You look at somebody like Jack Mann. You know, nearly 2 years since he last played for Glasgow. He's been a terrible time with injuries. But we've just talked about Gregor Brown's injured, Max Williamson's injured, and Jack Dempsey's injured. So actually, there's an opportunity there, particularly because Franco goes 6-2 on the bench every week, that, you know, all of a sudden he could force his way into a European game or an Edinburgh game probably on the bench, and string a run of games together. And that's what happened last year with somebody like Max Williamson, who found himself in the team, played well, then couldn't get, you know, he never left the team, and now he's a Scotland international. So, you know, you're probably looking at Max Williamson filling Richie Gray's shoes, which is a sizable task. But, you know, that's the opportunity that kind of presents itself. And, yeah, it'll be an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see how they go. Are you there, Bruce? Have I lost you?
When you're talking, I think I'm here. Am I there? You got me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You got me?
I've got you now.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Just when you're talking there about Jack Mann, you got me? Hello.
Yes.
You got me?
We're on.
Right. You're talking about Jack Mann there and injuries, and I was speaking to Connor Boyle's mum, and if that kid didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck. I mean, it's unreal what he's been through. So, as well as there being chances for playing in the URC, there's chances to stake a claim to go higher there as well. You know, Jack. Look at Freddie Douglas. Like, he's now a Scotland international. Like, if Jack Mann turns it in, you know, I'm not saying he's going to leapfrog Magnus Bradbury, Ben Muncaster, as well as, you know, Fagerson and Dempsey, but he gets into the conversation. You've got an emerging game coming up. Scotland A games look to be coming back. Hopefully there's going to be more chances for these guys to put themselves into the mixer.
And that's what you want. You want these opportunities, and you want a tangible pathway to, you know, as high as these players can go, and whether that's playing for Edinburgh, Glasgow, or whether it's, you know, honours with Scotland or higher than that. In the case of somebody like Sione, that's what it should be. So, Yeah, it's a big game. It's a big game for that forward pack. I think if they can get parity up front, though, Glasgow, and that's what they'll look at. They'll look at, you would assume, parity up front, and then allowing that back division to sort of do its thing.
And they're getting to play at Scotstoun, and teams don't like going to Scotstoun. And how do you prep as Scarlets? How do you prep Glasgow? Like, how do you prep that forward pack? You don't know about probably 5 of that pack. You don't know anything about them. I don't know how that comes across, but how do you prep other than Johnny Matthews likes to do that, Venter likes to do that, and we might know a bit about Ali Miller. But other than that, how are you prepping with that forward pack?
Yeah, I think you probably don't do that much on the Glasgow pack. Dwayne Peel's probably, on their way to Scotstoun saying, well, thank goodness Darge isn't playing and the Fagersons aren't playing, and there'll be an element of that, but he'll be guarding against any form of complacency, because it would be easy for a Scarlets team that's pretty strong to drop their level and all of a sudden they don't deliver what they probably should. But look, I think it's a tough test for Glasgow. They haven't lost at home in the league in a long time, but that'll certainly be under threat tonight.
You've got 2 Scottish teams who their top players are coming out of largely a positive experience the last 4 weeks. If you're one of the top Welsh players, I don't know what their mindset is. Are they buzzing to get back to club rugby? Are they coming back? How are they feeling? And then Italy, not really that, they've not probably kicked on the way everybody loves to see Italy kick on and start the discussion again about relegation and Georgia and all that kind of stuff. So, but Benetton worries me more probably than Scarlets, but that's maybe Edinburgh worry me more than Glasgow.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that for those reasons. But look, if you're one of the Welsh guys that's been involved in the last 3 or 4 weeks, you surely just want to put your boots back on. There's nothing worse than having a bad performance or a bad result, and then you don't get the chance to play again for weeks and weeks and weeks and put that right. So presumably all those guys will be itching to play and ready to go. The Italians, I think, did a really difficult autumn, which was probably masked by the fact that they run the All Blacks not that close, but closer than it's been. So yeah, it's a difficult. I think they'll all be desperate to get back playing. The selections are very different. Scarlets have gone pretty strong, where Benetton have rested quite a few. So yeah, I think I'm less worried about the Benetton team than I am the Scarlets team. But as you say, I would definitely be more concerned about Edinburgh than I would Glasgow.
I think with Glasgow, you look at, like, George Horn has a level of consistency.
Yeah.
But knowing that Dobie's breathing down his neck, Ali Price got a run against Fiji. Ben White appears to be Gregor's first choice. Then you've got Adam Hastings, who I hope is buzzing and flying and ready to go. Kyle Rowe will be desperate to get back into the mix, because Tom Jordan has not taken his spot, but that flexibility he now shows maybe makes Kyle Rowe less attractive. And then you've got guys like, everybody else in that back line they've got a lot to play for as individuals, because none of that back line for Glasgow is necessarily first choice. So they have to perform. Like, now I'm really interested to see what happens to Tom Jordan. How does Tom Jordan fit into a Warriors team that has Hastings, Tuipulotu, Jones, and McDowell? Does Tom Jordan now become a 15 at Glasgow because it gets all the best players on the pitch at the same time?
And then that does almost a disservice to Josh Mackay, was their player of the year last year. And so and has been Mr. Consistent. And you would have said 6 weeks ago, I wish that guy was, with Blair unavailable, I wish that guy was Scottish qualified because he would do you a job at 15. He's not for now. Tom Jordan's taken that opportunity. So you're right. It poses such a, Franco might be better going 7-1 on the bench and just leaving Tom Jordan on the bench because he can play anywhere. It is a headache. But we spoke to Gregor about this after the Australia game, and we were saying, has it given you the kind of headache that you want? And he's all for it. Obviously, you would want, somebody like Kyle Rowe probably was Scotland's second choice fullback going into the autumn. Now he's probably fighting for a place on the wing because of the performances of Tom Jordan. So, yeah, it's fascinating. You look at, I see Cam Redpath's back on the bench for Bath this weekend. From a national team point of view, where does he fit in with the sort of Rory Hutchinsons and Stafford McDowell behind Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu? And I think one of the things out of this that we've probably learned is that Gregor's days of making sweeping changes to teams because he can, not because we're playing Portugal or whatever, they seem to be done. I think he's now got an idea of, as you say, Kinghorn at 15, that Glasgow midfield, Finn and Ben White. Like, there's a lot of that team sort of picks itself now. So I've gone on a bit of a tangent there. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, caused Franco more headaches than he probably would like to have. But, they're all positive.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Franco likes that. I think he's one of the, he likes to keep folk on the toes. He's not really given MD the shirt and said, that's for you. The bit that makes me laugh about Glasgow, I don't know him, but I'm pretty sure we would be best friends. But Dunky Weir on the bench, I love that. It's so good. And he's next to Ben Afshar. What are those two talking about? That's gold. And, you look at that forward pack, there must be 100 pictures of some of those boys as primary school kids getting their picture taken with Duncan Weir.
100%.
It's class.
And again, he's somebody that others or us from the outside would say, well, why do Glasgow still need Duncan Weir? But they've managed to find a role for him. And he spoke at the start of the season about, if he's asked to play a handful of games, but his job becomes readying the in the non-23, in the bibs, readying the starting team, then okay, he might not be happy with it, but he's the kind of guy who, as you say, Ali Miller will give tonight. Ali Miller will give everything Ali Miller's got, but these guys give that when they're not in the team. We just don't see it, So it's a really interesting dynamic, and I think Franco has done what's the biggest thing with Franco is that he's brought that level of performance and expectation to Glasgow that they now have to deliver on.
Ali Miller, really interesting career. He was kind of there in Sevens and Edinburgh and a squad player, and then when Glasgow asked him, he's picked up Player of the Match awards with Glasgow, and he's done some pretty, he'll get hold of the ball in a bit of space, and the Sevens takes over and away he goes, and he's able to link, and he's a pretty hardy customer. His hair's never out of place, which just kills me. Neither's mine, right enough. But guys like that, Chris Dean in days gone by, Edinburgh, Demo to a certain extent, guys who just continue to front up, never on the cover of the programme, very seldom shipped out in front of the press. But, Ali Miller's worth his weight.
But I think that's the trick now, is that Glasgow seem to have a lot of, along with the stars, Glasgow have got a lot of these guys, Gregor Brown, Max Williamson. Alex Williamson's the new chief executive of Scottish Rugby. I don't think he'll he'd be doing a job in the second row for the Warriors.
I don't know if they keep going with the way they are. He might be getting a shout.
He might be. I actually wondered if I should take my boots if there was a, but that's probably a step too far. You know, these guys, Ewan Ferry, Henko Venter, Ali Miller, there's loads of these guys who just have they might not be the flashiest players in the world, but they always give you, as you said earlier, they always give you that 7 out of 10. And I think that's the difference in Edinburgh is that there's a fluctuation in the level of performance from player to player and week to week. And it's, that's just too great. And they've got to sort that out. This sort of 4 weeks is a big part of the season for Edinburgh.
Well, I think I was with Magnus Bradbury at the weekend, and this is them all the way through to the second 1872 Cup game. There's no break. It's all the way through, and then I think they're getting a bit of time off over the new year. So it's nose to the grindstone now. It's go for it, and it's kind of interesting. I've been in the company of a few of the boys over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I was never very sure. If you're a footballer, you talk about the derby, you talk about Old Firm, you talk about those sort of tall poppy games in your season, and they are talking about 1872. I spoke to a Glasgow player who will remain nameless, but Big Stafford said Edinburgh tend to perform in 1872 because it probably does carry a bit more. So not form goes out the window, because I don't believe that, but come the 1872, there's a bit more there.
There is a bit more there, and I think I listened to Sione was on a podcast with Ryan Wilson earlier in the week, and he's already relishing the prospect of playing against his brother. But he said, I think Sione's wanted to give a bit of verbals on the pitch, but actually he's worried about playing against Musese because his brother's the only one that's got some of the stories from back at home and all that kind of stuff. So, look, there's loads of little subplots to it. These guys will have trained against each other for weeks in Scotland training. There's a story about Freddie Douglas running over the top of Rory Darge in a session. He apparently, was toe-to-toe with Matt Fagerson. Look, all these wee things play into an 1872 Cup game. Some of them haven't been the best of spectacles over the years because of it, but they are they're kind of pivotal games. You want to get your kind of the better of your opposite man as you go into the Six Nations. So they're not quite probables against possibles, but they certainly feel like trial games.
Do you think after every Scotland game, Xander goes and chaps on whoever the financial director or CEO of the union is and says, listen, I probably deserve a wee bit more cash?
I think they've probably sorted him out okay. I think they've probably seen Xander right.
I don't know. The way him and his missus are reproducing, he needs all the money he can get, because it's that brood that must be worth a fortune.
Yeah, let's hope that one of them is a decent rugby player at least, because we could do with some pathway, and the Fagersons have proved pretty useful for Scotland.
They've done well. Matt getting his 50th cap, good lads, and they've got big hearts. And there's been a few people talking about Xander and how good he is, as with Johnny Matthews, and he was on about Xander is very, very good, very good. They all get wound up because he's a bit annoying, but he's very, very good, and that's class. But if you're one of the best props on the planet, you deserve it.
There's earlier in the week we spoke to Henko Venter, who said, Patrick Schickerling, who's obviously playing Loosehead this weekend. So look, he'll probably have scrummaged against Xander, and he's been around. He's only arrived at Glasgow, but he's been around for a while, and he reckons Xander's the top 3 props in the world. So, from a guy that knows what he's talking about, that's high praise. It was easy for you and I to stand and say, we think Xander's this, that, and the other. But for a guy who's competes with him, and I know you're not going to say your teammates obviously overrated nobody, but I think that speaks volumes, and I think Xander has probably started to get the recognition that his performances deserve.
What do you think, Has Schickerling got a nickname? Because that's a mouthful, eh? Patrick Schickerling.
The boys call him Chicken Wing.
Oh, is he chicken? Right, okay. Because he sounds like he should be like in a New York cop drama.
Yeah, I can see that.
Detective Inspector Schickerling.
Yeah.
Here comes Schickerling. Yeah.
So there you go. He is Chicken Wing.
Right. Okay.
Which I'm not sure on the pitch is that much easier to say, but who knows?
No, I love that. And Johnny Matthews, I mean, what a boy. What a boy. Like he'll be class in that. Like he's another one. Consistent level of performance.
Totally.
He's an 8 out of 10, and some weeks he gives you 10.
And these are the guys. They might not be leaders through the way they talk, but Glasgow got so many players that Franco Smith and the coaches can just depend on. So I think that will give him such confidence that he can put the young guys in without having a big drop in performance, because they've got guys round about them who will demand a sort of 7, 8 out of 10 from, or as best as they can give from the young guys.
Yeah, Johnny's not giving any motivational speeches in that Scouse accent, is he? Like just
no, I don't think it's unfair to say that's he probably isn't one of the talkers in the team.
Great lad, and I'm pleased to see Ben Muncaster for Edinburgh, Maggie, Jamie Ritchie. I like that back row. I'm interested to see how it goes. I think if Edinburgh can be horrible, be really physical, carries that are, get Pierre's paws on the ball, be really aggressive at the breakdown, Gilco just clearing rucks, and then we've got to create space, but we can only do that if we're really horrible and nasty and physical up front, because that back line could and should do good stuff. Like if you're a winger or a 15 playing outside somebody like Matt Curry, one outside break and the way he distributes, that should be fun. Like that should be a nice thing to play in.
Totally. But I think the other thing is they've far too often. It's not a criticism I would level at Darcy, because I think he does go kind of roaming, but far too often you see Duhan glued to the touchline. They've got to get him in the game. Like if they're not able yet to get the ball through 5 or 6 sets of hands and get it to him, they've got to get him into the game another way, whether that's using him off 9 or off 10. But they just need to, I think the 2 games they've won, Duhan and Darcy have had the most touches that they've had all season. So they are their dangerous players, and they've got to find a way of involving them as much as possible. And I don't think having them running shuttles, going after box kicks is the best use of either of their skills.
No, I wouldn't be sad if there are fewer box kicks on Saturday night. It would be nice to see pause on the ball, and they've got to score tries. If they're going to keep talking about we're developing our attack, then that developing attack is tries. That's what we're looking at,
and not tries. And I think developing your attack also says we don't want to score tries that involve Pierre tapping the ball, running headfirst into 6 defenders, and then from there, Ali Price gets shoved out the road, and we'll go pick and go until there's a gap. That's not developing your attack. If you're serious about developing your attack, you're talking about scoring tries that have come through a play you've created. So look, they've had a couple of weeks off. They've had a couple of weeks back at training. We'll see how they go tomorrow night. And yeah, it's a huge evening for them.
Yeah, no, I'd like to see in action. I think it's one of those. Right now, let's get into it and have a crack. And some big news Coming out of headquarters, obviously Nucifora's in, CEO's on his way, and Keith Wallace, your clubmate at Haddington, now El Presidente, the man in charge. Geez, he's to the manor born.
Yeah, he is, and hopefully we'll persuade Keith to make an appearance on these channels soon,
you're all right.
sooner rather than later. But look, he's been involved in rugby for a long time, understands the club game and all that it stands for. So it was nice to be at the AGM on Wednesday night. The media part of the virtual AGM was held in person, so it was nice to be able to pass on congratulations to somebody I've known for a long time. We'll have to wait and see how he does. And I think big news from Murrayfield that Nucifora's in. He was obviously at the A game, and I think it will be interesting to see what his early imprint is. I think you look at the emerging Scotland game. That's emerging Ireland was a thing during his time in Dublin. So has that come directly from him? It certainly seems like it. And the CEO has got obviously a massive job to do in turning around the business, but he's now not looking. It doesn't sound like he'll arrive much before the Six Nations, though. John McGuigan said he hopes that he's in sometime in the new year in a sort of part-time role. But I mean, he needs to get his feet under the desk as quickly as he possibly can.
Yeah, and Hazel Swankie, President Dunfermline, is that a lot? Is listening to people, rugby as well. I don't know how a lot of these things work, but Hazel working with Keith, and hopefully a bright future for everybody.
Yeah, that's it. People that really understand the club game, and you hope that they can forge a relationship that means they can work together. I think Keith probably did that reasonably well with Colin Rigby. They seem to have a reasonable relationship. So, look, it's all about people, isn't it? They've got to form that working relationship, that understanding, and get on with the job, because there's an awful lot to be doing to sort out at Murrayfield, not least the stadium, which we've had an update on from John McGuigan, and they're committed to incremental updates but there's clearly not a pot of gold there that they can go and make huge sweeping changes. So I think caution about getting too excited and patience is going to be the key things there.
I did check my lottery ticket to see if I had the 177 million, because I was keen for it to be Bruce Aitchison Murrayfield Stadium instead of Scottish Gas, or I had ideas, but unfortunately it wasn't me.
Yeah, I don't know how Bruce Aitchison Murrayfield or Happiness is Egg-Shaped Murrayfield would sit.
Imagine that logo on this top of the stands. It's going to happen, I'm telling you.
I don't even know if you would use the logo. I think you would just have your face either side of the Murrayfield. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So for all parties, probably a good thing that that's not on the cards quite yet.
Not yet. Watch this space. And then massive news coming out of Biggar. I was doing in Biggar, speaking at an all-male dinner, and I was telling them how incredible Biggar rugby is, and such a great part of the community, and that the two best rugby players ever to come out of Biggar are Donna Kennedy and Emma Orr. And I'm Donna Kennedy is a phenomenal person, great ambassador, done loads. I know she speaks to Emma a fair bit and has mentored Emma. Emma scored her first try for Bristol Bears last weekend, but Donna getting the invite to Monaco World Rugby Hall of Fame, that's monumental.
Yeah, it's massive, and it's massive. I think we said this before. It's massive for that era of the women's game. It gives that respect to the very early kind of days of women's rugby, international rugby, and look at the journey it's been on in the last 5 years, never mind never mind any beyond that. So look, it's massive. I think it's great recognition for all that Donna achieved as a player, but also all she's done and continues to do to mentor and be that kind of inspiration for the current squad. I know there was loads of videos going about of them congratulating her, which was great, and of our teammates. So yeah, look, it's magic and not a bad place to be inducted into. No Hall of Fame's a bad thing, but a trip to Monaco on top's pretty good.
I'm still on that one. No, it was class. Listen, Black Friday today, £12 for months. That's £1 to read so much every day. Come on, that's in fact, there's a Christmas present to get folk. Buy folk a subscription, £12. There you go, I'm buying something for a year. Because let's face it, Scottish Rugby News is for life, not just for Christmas.
And I think just on that, Bruce, I think we want to, when we set Scotland Rugby News up at the start of the year, we want to really make this the sort of go-to place for all your rugby news, whether it's, the latest at Murrayfield, or whether it's interviews with Edinburgh and Glasgow players, or the best stats. Nobody does the stuff that Kevin Miller does for us at the Top of the Moon. We want to be a real point of difference. And I think we've had great response from people over the last sort of 10, 11 months. But I think that to allow us to continue into what's going to be a massive, massive 2025, we're signed up for all the Six Nations games. There's a really exciting Scotland summer tour coming up. There's a Lions tour. There's loads and loads and loads of stuff happening to allow us to continue to do what we're doing and develop it even further. Hopefully people see that £12 for a year's subscription. Some other sites you can pay £12 a month and more. And hopefully people see the value in it. But if you can, scotlandrugbynews.com/subscribe is the link, which is going along the bottom of the screen just now.
Nice. Talking big fella. And we're going to be a podcast that people can listen to, so they don't even have to look at us anymore. How good's that?
How good is that? Yeah, just another thing that we want to do. So, our YouTube channel will still be here, and we'll continue to post loads of content. It'll be press conferences. Well, obviously the podcast will still be here, but we're going to be set up as a podcast as well. So keep your eyes on the old social media channels for all the news on that, which will come hopefully in the next few days.
Nice. Nick on the line. Glasgow score.
Interesting. I'm going to say 29-18 to Glasgow.
Nice. We'll take that. Edinburgh score.
I'm really torn. I'll say 17-12 to Edinburgh.
No chance. It's going to be much higher score than that. Edinburgh are going to be in the 30s, Benetton in the 20s.
Do you know what? I thought it was a few of my mates and other people predicted that the Australia game last week would be crazy high scoring, and it wasn't really. So who knows?
Who knows? It's going to be good though. Back on the horse. Great to see you, big fella. Look after yourself. Scotland Rugby News, £12 for 12 months. Get involved. Black Friday on Tuesday. It makes sense. Have a great weekend, whatever you're up to, and we'll be back next week. Speak soon. Look after yourselves.